Okay, so I have my little roll. It's nice and cool. I'm gonna unroll it a little bit. Ooh, lots of cracks. Oh, lots of breakage. Oh no. He's so disappointed in me. Oh well. I still bet it's gonna taste good. Alright, so as you can see, I got lots of breaking. Probably went a little aggressive with the curl, but you know, I mean, you live, you learn, you make cake again. So I'm going to pinch them together just a touch. What we're going to do for filling, I'm going to take some heavy cream. And I'm going to throw a little bit of cocoa powder in it. Sure. And we're going to use a little bit of peppermint extract, because I don't have peppermint pieces and I'm not going to go to the store. So just with this one, actually, I'm going to pour a little bit in the cap. So I don't want to go too bananas with it. I'm just going to take about 3/4 of a capful, and we're going to whip it. Like most of the things we've been whipping, it's the same basic process. You know, try and get the corners and go through. I'm not really going to sweeten this because we've got all the chocolate in the cake. We're going to do a buttercream frosting, which will be sweet enough as it is, so I don't really need a whole lot more. But whip it to a nice, good consistency, so that way I can, you know, kind of get a good stiff to medium peak on it, and then roll it again from there. Okay, so it's not quite there yet on the in the texture that I want, but because I kind of winged it, I want to taste it and make sure that it doesn't need any adjustment. Actually, might need just a hint of sugar though. Alright, so at this point, I'm not going to put in granulated sugar because that would just take way too long to dissolve in there. It would make it really gritty. So instead, I'm going to take a little bit of powdered sugar. Just with that cocoa powder and that peppermint, it's kind of flat and a little bitter. So we're going to just give it a little bit of balance. Not trying to make it sweet, but definitely trying to take off some of that edge. You see that whipped cream now has just got a really great stiff texture to it. And now the flavor. There we go. Now it balances out a little bit more. Okay, so now we're going to try and fill it and then re-roll it and then put it on the plate that it's going to live on. And we're going to see how that goes. Grab a spatula. And with this, I'm going to try and kind of like dab it down my chunks of broken cake. Just to not have to go over those ridges as much. So that I don't break it too much more, then it's already broken. Just getting a nice, good finish layer on here. Oh, I usually use it as a little spackle. There we go. And I can go over those broken seams. I'm sure it's not going to hold, but at least for this stage, it looks better than it did when it's all busted. Okay, now for fun, I am going to take one of our new favorite snack items. Pretzel pieces. So we started doing imperfect food deliveries, so we don't have to leave the house, and I get access to all this cool stuff. And so they have pretzel pieces, which are just, you know, sort of busted up pieces against what you would get in those bags of like flips or whatever. And really, I mean, it's just a whole ton of pretzel. Oops. Oh, perfect. Little pretzel pieces, just smothered in chocolate, right? All busted up, but still fully coated. So what we're gonna do is just lightly sprinkle these around. That chocolate coating should help to keep the pretzel from going soft with that whipped cream. So we'll get a little crunch in this bad boy when we slice it. We'll clean that part up later. Did I drop one? Ah, there it is. Okay, good. All right. Okay, now we're going to try and re-roll this bad boy. I'm going to use paper a lot more this time. So what I want to do is I want to get that cake to roll cake, because we don't want to have paper in it. So I'm kind of pushing along the back of it with my thumbs, and then using my fingers here in the front to just sort of shape that cake forward, and then just keep rolling. Pull the cake back towards me, and then just keep pushing up, pulling up, pardon me, with my forefinger and my thumb, using my other fingers to just kind of slowly keep the cake pushing down the roll. When I get to those breaks, whipped cream's actually doing a pretty good job helping hold everything all together in here. Make sure I got my little edges rolling, trying to keep it as even as I can. Last breaks here. At this point, I'm just going to go ahead and kind of paper out of the way, see if I can't get that last bit with my hand. Oh, and then she starts to break apart. Alright, so hold on to that. Grab my plate. Okay, now here gets to be the fun part. Couple of different ways to approach this. Either we pick it up by the paper, and we try and tuck the paper edge underneath to get it over. Pick it up with our hands and just drop it down. You can grab a big fat spatula, drop that up underneath there. Whatever you want to go through and do to get yourself what you think will be the best success. I'm just going to manhandle it. Oop. Maybe I'm not. Oh yeah. Alright, so instead, I'm going to take the paper, and then I'm just going to roll it out off onto the plate, because now, oh yeah, it's shattered all the way around. But, you know what, it'll be good. Alright, just going to press it down just a little bit with the paper out of the way, thank you. There we go. Alright, so the whipped cream's helping me to kind of tuck some of these pieces in. Just going to be good. And now we're ready to set this aside, make some frosting, and then frost it. So, give everything a quick wipe down, all my chocolate mess. Okie dokie. Grab a little quart mixer bowl. Alright, so frosting, a couple of quick things with it. 4 ingredients. You got butter, powdered sugar, cocoa powder, a little bit of milk. Butter's already been softening. If you go for, I think the exact recipe runs against like 125 grams. A stick of butter is 113. Yeah, 113, which at this point is close enough for what I'm trying to do with it. I took this out and left it on the counter before we started the whole cake thing, just so that way it would have time to soften. But you can push it a little bit, try and like kind of whip it into softness if you like. If you're running behind, if you forgot to throw it into the pardon me, if you forgot to pull it out of the refrigerator, but it does make it a little more challenging, and you're definitely going to want to make sure that that butter's nice and well whipped before you add all the rest of your things, otherwise it's just not going to come together right. Okay, so this one calls for a ton of powdered sugar, because, you know, buttercream, nice and sweet. That's really what's going to help kind of hold everything all together. What I'm going to do first, though, is I'm going to put in the cocoa powder. And then I'll do a little bit of the white powdered sugar, and then we're going to do some of the milk. With this little container, I know that if I put in all the powdered sugar to start off with, I'm going to end up with a Scarface level white powder parade in the kitchen. So I'm going to add probably about half of it and get it started until I have like a wet enough mixture. I'm going to keep everything all stuck together. Just to be able to be on the safe side, grab half and half instead of milk, because that's what I have. So I'll throw a little bit of this in there. And then we're going to go for about half of the powdered sugar, as the recipe calls for, just so that way we can manage that initial poof. Alright. Use the beaters to kind of start everything getting sticky. I'll go low, cover it up. Okay, look at that. Even as I'm going through with the blenders, like already you can see I've got kind of like a dry mix patch up top, and then it's wet down here on the bottom. What I'm going to do is I'm going to still just slowly roll towards the dry side. Until I can get almost all of it in there and lift up. Alright, yeah, it looks like frosting already. What I'm going to do, give it a little taste. And at this point, it's a lot of butter. It's not a bad thing, just a thing. We're going to go back on the scale. I still got about 100 grams worth of powdered sugar to add. I don't necessarily want it to be too sweet, so I'm going to scale it back. I'm going to trim it down about 50 grams total worth of powdered sugar, less than what the recipe called for. just to see where it stands, right? Like I can add more if I want. I can't really take it out once it's there. So we're going to see how it goes. Again, I'm just going to cover it up. Trying to get some of this powdered sugar to stick into the frosting that's already there, just so I don't get as too much of a white mix mess in my house. Just let that start to mix a little bit, and then we'll just start to slowly go around, adding in more that dry powdered sugar. Until I feel confident that I can get the rest of it. I'm going to turn it up. And really, getting this nice, beautiful light brown. And then it's got that thick, but nice and soft frosting kind of texture. There you go. Chocolatey. Not too super sweet. Still sweet because it's frosting. But not like, oh my god, where's Herbie, the dentist elf? Okay, so now that we have the frosting and we have our little log, we get to get one on top of the other, however we choose. You can be all super fancy and try and like get nice smooth coatings over it. I think the traditional one is supposed to be kind of ridged with a fork, so that way it looks more like a log. How do we want to do this? All the different drawers worth of weird cooking accoutrement. Let's try a butter knife. Let's do that. Okay, so a knife. Make sure I got all the filling kind of as homogeneous as I can, or frosting, pardon me. Get those last little bits to the corner, any dry pockets. Better than that Duncan Hines pre-made stuff. And it didn't take very long at all. Okay, so I'm going to start on the top. Just put a nice big sort of ridge frosting on the top. Not necessarily using all of it just yet. I'm going to take it, my knife, and I'm just going to start to rock it back and forth a little bit, applying a little more pressure, level it off, pushing it out to those outside edges, kind of swooping off. I can go right off the edge if I like. I slow down a little bit so I'm not flinging frosting all over the place. And kind of come back. And this big fat knob off on the side here, now I'm just going to go through, turn my plate around, and then use the edge of my knife, see if I can't get a good sort of coating. Try and cover up some of those dry spots of cake. Just taking this excess frosting, starting to kind of slide it down a little bit. This does take a lot of practice to get kind of comfortable with how much pressure to put on it. So don't feel bad if it goes crazy. I'm getting chunks of cake kind of flicking off of here, just sort of folding those back into it. When I get those cracks, that's usually when I won't go back and forth over it. I'll start just kind of swooping in one direction. I don't know if it really helps much, but it makes me feel better about it. And then now I got that little bald spot, so I'm going to come in, try and just use a little of the tip of my knife, kind of get it in there, and then just sort of slide it back and forth. And then once I get close, just sort of go one direction. And then get to the other side, take what excess I have, use the tip of the knife just to start to kind of mound that down, figure out where my edge really is. Go back and forth, and I'm starting to get those cake ridges, so I'm just going to probably focus on going one direction. come this way and get that edge as much as I can. Get that little tuck under. Grab a little bit for this edge here. And again, just grabbing the tip, kind of taking it, sort of pasting it in there. And then just that knife, one direction, fill out those other edges. And it definitely does give it, I don't know, as much of a dessert log look, I think, as you're going to get. You don't really need the fork edges. Now, trying to butter frosting this piece of it, especially with mine being all sorts of ugly and funky, it's going to be a mess. And I don't necessarily know if it's worth it. I think I'm actually pretty good with it as is. You know, one of the things I remember reading about a long time ago in one of Anthony Bourdain's books was sort of the difference between, you know, a skilled home cook and a professional is, you know, just the presentation. He talked about, you know, squeeze bottles and referred to it as, you know, bodily fluids, but it's presentation and that kind of like adjustment. Like, this is perfectly fine, you know, for sending out to somebody, or if you've got the family sitting around there, you've got a little bit of smudges around the, you know, the plate here, but for, you know, for those Instagrammable photos, you know, kind of just taking that little bit of extra time, kind of clean up that window a little bit, you know, get the edge of the plate looking kind of nice. We can dust this with powdered sugar. We could take a little bit more of our broken pretzel pieces and kind of tuck those down around the bottom, kind of help to cover some of that sort of sloppiness around that edge where we didn't want to worry about frosting. You know, there's lots of tips and tricks on how to hide little imperfections. You know, again, nothing that's mission critical, right? It's all just about, you know, if you wanted to take it to that next level, make it seem like, you know, you get that like solid wow moment wherever you take it. You know, you're good to go. And so let's do a slice, see what it looks like on the inside. Alright, cake. So I'm going to just take the edge piece, take my knife, and just gentle pressure. It's compressing a little bit, but I'm not really trying to jam it through. I'm just letting the knife take its time, letting it trying to cut through that delicate cake. Sort of swoop it out, so that way I can kind of clear the rest of what we got there. And then again, you know, because fancy and whatnot. You can see it gets a little bit mushy in here, but we can see that I'm going to have those definite layers of cake and whip. Whoop, over here. There we go. Cake, whip, you know, kind of working its way along here. And then I can even see, you know, some of those little pockets where I've got my bits of pretzel kind of scattered around through there. So got a little bit of extra peppermint in that whipped filling. Because we did put whipped cream, like just straight whipped cream in the middle of it, this one definitely should go in the fridge as opposed to sitting out overnight on the counter. But let's see what we got. Come here. Yeah. Yeah, that's a winner. I dig it. Some things to fix. But chocolatey, pepperminty, creamy.
Yeah, that's not bad at all.
All right. Cool. Well, there you go. Cake. A Buche de Noel. By all means, as always, feel free to do whatever you want to it. I think the original recipe had fresh fruit with the whipped cream plus a little bit of booze. You can take marinated fruit, dried fruit. You can do more buttercream frosting if you wanted to go through and drop that in the middle there. I think in next round, whenever I make this again, God only knows when. In theory, do like a thin layer of like a deep colored jam in there, like a red, like a deep raspberry or maybe like a blackberry or something, and then do these things. I think the fruit gets a little weird with the peppermint, so I was just trying to keep it pretty basic. But if you do one that's more, whipped berries and then that chocolate, caramel would be really great in here. All sorts of fun things and potential to go through and look at, and then just kind of continually working on this flourless, sponge recipe to get it where you want it and get it to do what you want to do. Have fun. Enjoy the cake.